everyone, FPL Warden here to talk about Game Week 22 and planning ahead for the rest of this FPL season. I hope everyone is having a great weekend. There's 18 more weeks to get our points tallies where we want them to be, but there's definitely a lot of perspective on when we should actually come into those points. If you're worried about your rank right now because you keep falling bit by bit, just remember there are tons of managers out there spraying chips everywhere just for a small chance of getting that manager of the week or top scorer of the week, or just wanting to be top of the second chance league. Wherever you are, just keep chugging along and making the best decisions you can, and you'll see the results as the season goes along. So let's get started with my Game Week 21 team, what happened, and the results that I saw personally. So to begin with, I did start out in a 3-4-3. As I've kind of been playing a lot this season, I have had 3 strikers the majority of the season. I just haven't really had the ability to drop, and I just keep kind of falling into the right guy at the right time. So I've stuck with 3 at the front for a lot of the season, but I think I might be managing my team into more of a 4-5-1 or a 4-4-2, something like that along the line. For last week's transfer that I made, I brought in Watkins for Ekitike. It definitely did not work out, and I feel like it was definitely a wasted transfer, as I've already transferred out Watkins again, so definitely a wasted transfer, but we move on. He got 2 points against Palace. He did rack up 0.86 XG, so really it wasn't a bad decision. It just wasn't the right one for the long term, and I probably should have gone straight to Thiago, as you'll see and I'll talk about later. In goal, I had Dubravka over Leno. I just thought that Dubravka might get a clean sheet against United. In the end, it was a nothing burger, 3 points for the both of them. So relatively happy. That's what you get with the cheap goalkeeper. And then I just saw results from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Harry Wilson, Gabriel, and Haaland. And then Tarkowski, of course, with DEFCONs as usual. I feel like I need a little bit more out of my midfield. Really, Wirtz, Saka, Foden, but outside of Haaland, they are the most expensive players in my team, and they all have been blanking, or at least they all blanked this week. So not too happy with that. I think I may be moving on from Foden in the near future, but I'm definitely going to give him the benefit of the doubt for United away and Wolves away in the next 2 weeks. So moving straight along into questions we may have around Ekitike, and should we sell him? In short, my answer is probably not. If he's fit, Ekitike is the main outlet for Liverpool's attack. And being yellow flagged with a hamstring injury, his minutes are at risk for Arne Slot to possibly wean him back into things slowly so as not to aggravate the injury. And he has had slight injury problems since joining Liverpool, which could offer some rationale to sell him. But if he is fit, he should start, and especially since Isak has a broken leg and should be out for some time. Arne Slot doesn't seem to want to play Gakpo through the middle, and actually it looked like he kept him at left wing in Game Week 21 with Wirtz playing a false 9 in lieu of having a striker on. Burnley at home is obviously one of the best fixtures anyone can have at the moment, so in my opinion, it's worth the risk to keep him at this moment. In his last 5 games before his injury, he averaged just under 9 points per game and was expected to have a goal involvement basically 0.91 times per 90 minutes, so basically every single game. Even if he does only play 60 minutes and prorating that 0.91 down to 60 minutes, 90 minutes down to 60, you would still take a striker on who is averaging 0.61 or 0.6 XGI. Or thereabouts, whatever the math is. I think that you would still be happy with a striker and wouldn't really consider him to be a problem in your team that needed fixing. If you need to free up budget, I would look to drop all the way down to a Krupi Jr. If you do decide to sell Ekitike, I would choose Krupi Jr. or Mane from Wolves. I think both of them are very good options and will free up 4.5 mil. So really, they'll allow you to have a lot more budget to maybe put into your defense, into your midfield, or even into your second striker spot alongside Haaland. If you don't have Thiago, I still think he also is a good buy despite the run of iffy fixtures that are coming up for Brentford. He's only 7.1 mil, which is a bargain for a guy who has scored 16 goals this season, and he has the data to support that production. It's not really just coming from nowhere. So in essence, I would say try to keep Ekitike. But if Slot comes out and says, hey, yeah, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, then I think you could sell to the likes of Thiago, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Krupi Jr., or Mane, depending on what budget needs you have, or if you have any other plans that you may need multiple transfers or anything like that. So for planning around the FA Cup and the EFL Cup, and the question of should we be chasing the price rises, I personally don't really think that we should be chasing price rises. I do understand that if you need to preserve team value and you see guys like Phil Foden and Mark Guiu falling, then it can be worth it. If you have Mark Guiu, it is worth it probably to go to a Krupi Jr. or a Mane. It's basically a straight swap for the same money, but you get a starting player. I'm assuming Krupi will start for Bournemouth with Semenyo out and Kluivert being hurt. So really, that would be a good move and should save you some cash as well. But I think it is risky, obviously, if you move early, as in today or Sunday. If you make an early transfer and then a problem crops up in your team, or even a bunch of problems, I don't think it's the worst week to wildcard though. So say you moved early and then two guys got hurt in the EFL Cup, or Gabriel got hurt in the FA Cup tomorrow. I think that then you could still possibly wildcard, if things really go awry. It might be worth wildcarding. I think game week 22 is fine. Obviously, game week 24 I think is where most people are aiming for. And really, you can just kind of get ahead of those transfers and maybe have 2 weeks or so of a sub-optimal team or slightly less than optimal. But still, you did just wildcard, so you should have most of the right options in your team. As far as what happened in the EFL and FA Cups, Newcastle did go into extra time today as I record on Saturday night. And they also play in the EFL Cup again on Wednesday against Manchester City. So it might be risky to bring in Bruno G, Gordon, Thiaw, or Hall. So despite them playing Wolves, I wouldn't really be bringing in these guys this week. Wolves have actually been in pretty good form, and Newcastle are bound to be tired after this week of games outside of the Premier League. So as I did just mention, should we be playing our wildcard this week? And so I've put up a fixture ticker courtesy of livefpl.net, and I do think that this week is not the best placement for the wild card, but as I said before, it isn't the worst. You give yourself the chance to catch the price rises before they happen, but open yourself up to the risk of needing to pivot or take a hit if you have multiple important injuries in your squad down the line. I will be doing a separate wildcard and transfers video this week, but I overall say to wait it out if you can. As you can see, Chelsea, Everton, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, and West Ham even do have some pretty good fixtures coming up. And so if you wanted to go early on guys like that, so Cole Palmer, Enzo, even a Jack Grealish, or as I said, maybe not to this week, but a Thiaw or a Bruno G, you could do that. And it might be the right decision down the line, but I think that it is slightly, as I said before, suboptimal this week. Moving forward into Chelsea's new manager, Saka, Semenyo, and other topics like that. Liam Rosenior, I believe that's how you say his name, I'm not totally sure. He is the new manager of Chelsea, and I'm just recording this a bit after the Chelsea match in the FA Cup, where they did win. It does look like he will be playing with four at the back, that kind of formation, but it will be relatively hard to tell how they will line up in the Premier League, given that they also have a midweek fixture against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. It did look like they were resting key players today for this match. So we'll need to keep an eye on the formations and players that Rosenior does choose for game week 22 and 23, especially if we're not wildcarding this week and we do decide to wildcard in 24. That way we can kind of plan who we should bring in for Chelsea's nice run of fixtures that are coming up from 24 on. Moving on to Saka. Should we be transferring him out? In my opinion, no. I know a lot of people are kind of underwhelmed with the fact that he is kind of ticking along. He's getting like 4 pointers, 5 pointers. Obviously, last week he did blank. But in my opinion, Saka is the type of guy who does that. He gets 6 points a game. He gets 8 points a game. And he's not going to pop off for, a 20-pointer, a 17-pointer. He is Arteta's favorite player and is sometimes the only source of creativity in Arsenal's attack. So are you really going to take out the star man for the number one team in the Premier League. Like, they're in first place. He's a starter as long as he's not injured. Saka is favored by Arteta and a non-negotiable, and he just signed a new contract. I would assume that he's going to do well, and that he is a hold. Saka does have a lower ceiling than other players, obviously, as I just said, but he does have a very high floor, in my opinion. I think that he will average at least 5 points a game, if not higher than that. And so if you do the math, 38 times 6, or let's say 6 points, that's a 250-point season. So I think he'd be doing pretty well. So yeah, I would say hold on to him. The real question for Arsenal, in my opinion, is should we have Rice as well as Saka? And in my opinion, yeah, I think Arsenal, despite the fact that they do seem to just keep a clean sheet, you won't really be gaining too much rank by having 2 Arsenal defenders. Whereas if you do differentiate and bring in Rice, he could be a good differential for your team and for the rest of the season. As an FPL pick, I think that Rice is fantastic. He obviously is on corners. He takes free kicks. He just seems to pop up with a goal from that kind of holding 6-8 roaming midfielder role. Yeah, like Saka, he's nailed. And barring any injury, he will start all the games as much as possible. So in my opinion, he is better than having a Raya or a Timber, who could potentially, they'll get a 6 every single time they keep a clean sheet. But Rice will continue to score goals. He will get DEFCONs. So really, if they keep a clean sheet and Rice gets DEFCONs, that's 5 points. And what you're getting from a clean sheet for Timber, because he won't get DEFCONs, it's 6 points. So there's only 1 point in it, and then you have the option and the chance for Rice to go on and get a goal or an assist. So I do think that he is the better pick. Now moving forward to Manchester City and Semenyo, who they've obviously just bought in. He looks pretty good in light blue, if you ask me. As a Man City fan, he did have a goal and an assist in the FA Cup today. And I think Pep will continue to give him minutes on the right or left wing. I think that that's very important for Pep, is the fact that Semenyo can play striker, he can play right wing, he can play left wing. He will be rotated. So if you're looking for a 90-minute man, he is not your guy. But I think that he is still a decent option, actually. If you want to take a risk, definitely go with a differential who is Premier League proven, who has over 100 points already this season. I think that Semenyo is a fun option to go with if you don't want to have a Foden or Cherokee even. I think that he will be a lot of fun moving forward. I just wouldn't count on him to have, 90 minutes or even 80 minutes. He might be more like a 60-minute or even like a 35-minute cameo kind of thing. So definitely be careful. Keep an eye on what Pep does, especially with all the injuries in the defense. So we really don't know, but definitely worth keeping an eye on Semenyo. All right, so here is my final team selection, at least for now. I think that barring any injury, this is how I will line up, but I might wildcard if everyone gets hurt in the Arsenal game midweek or tomorrow, so we'll see. I did make the mistake 2 weeks ago, as I said, of selling Ekitike for Watkins, when I really should have gone straight to Thiago, or have kept Ekitike and kept the transfers. I would have caught that 12-point haul from Thiago last week. So I've tried to rectify that mistake and bring him in this week and basically waste 2 transfers, but it is what it is. I hope that he does pay off despite the fixture ticket list for him. I still think Watkins is actually a decent pick despite the fact that I transferred him out, and you can see that his price has risen over the past 24 hours. So people are bringing in Watkins, expecting him to play well. If you look at Aston Villa, they play Everton this week, and then they play Newcastle, Newcastle really don't keep that many clean sheets. So I still think that he is a pretty good option of grabbing a goal. And then it's Brentford at home, Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away. I think that it is a great run of fixtures for Ollie Watkins, but I just wanted the guy who's got 16 goals this season. I think that he's already proven himself, and Brentford are in 5th place. So Thiago, for me, is the option there. I've subbed on Leno back in for Dubravka, and otherwise left my team unchanged. Kukureya will stay on my bench until their fixtures look up in 24. Harry Wilson scored and assisted in the FA Cup and maintains his kind of hot streak, so he definitely will stay in my squad. And Foden, again, is on the hot seat, but I want to keep him against United and Wolves before potentially moving on in game week 24. He loves a goal from the edge of the box against United, so I think that he is definitely worth keeping for this week and the next against Wolves. Alright guys, well that does it for my Game Week 22 preview. As I said earlier, I will be making a wildcard and transfers video later this week before the deadline next Saturday. I hope to see you there. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, or if you want to hear my thoughts for the rest of the season. I really appreciate you watching if you made it this far, and I hope to see you later this week.